All right. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me all okay. Come on in, get comfortable. Welcome to our stream. We're going to give it a few minutes here just for folks to mosey on in. But it's all great to have you here. Hope everyone is having a lovely day, evening, morning, wherever you are. Woke up at 5 a.m. Yep. So did I. I am on the other side of the world, so nice and early over here. And appreciate you guys getting up early to join the stream or sticking around late, wherever you might be. All right, let me know if audio sounds all right as we go through. If levels need adjusting, just let me know in the chat and we will adjust accordingly. Alrighty, we've got a nice group of people from all over, it seems. 10 p.m., 5 p.m., 5 a.m. Well, we are very grateful that whatever time it is, you chose to come and spend it with us here on the official LaunchBox Twitch channel. So, as folks come in and get comfy, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. You might be wondering, who is this strange British guy that I've never seen before? My name is AstroBob. You might know me, probably see me on the forums and Discord as AstroBob. I'm a recent member of the LaunchBox team helping out with the community. It's a pleasure to be here and welcome you all to the stream and kick off what is our biggest celebration yet. Thank you so much for the subscription there. Already off to a good start. And we are almost at 1,000 followers on our brand new Twitch channel, which is crazy considering it's only been open for a couple of weeks. Okay, so this is a very special week for us here at LaunchBox. We are 11 years old, if you can believe that. It's come a long way. The app has improved a lot. The community has grown with us, and we are incredibly grateful. So this week is really for us to kind of give back to the community. We really want to make this a fun way that folks can engage. And we have a ton of amazing things going on this week. I'm going to quickly talk through what the schedule looks like for this week before we dive into the stream itself. But just so you know what you can expect from this stream, we are going to introduce the celebrations. We're going to sort of hang out for a little bit, but we're also going to dive into setting up LaunchBox. Now, I know a lot of you are seasoned veterans of LaunchBox, and even if that's the case, please don't worry. We hope that you'll find this session interesting. You know, we're so used to using LaunchBox in its sort of powerful configured form that we sometimes don't realize some of the workflows and features from a new user's perspective. So we're going to run through that, and hopefully you'll learn something new. Yeah, we're just gonna have a bit of fun and see where it takes us. But wow, we have a very busy chat here. So thank you all so much for the subscriptions that are coming through here, and everyone from Toronto to Brazil to all over the place who are joining us today. We are very grateful to have you here. Alrighty. So let me quickly talk through the celebration and what we've got going on. I know a lot of you are excited for a certain event that is going on right now. So our celebration is running through from the 25th until the 31st of August. And throughout this week, we have a ton of different events going on. Like I said, it's really to give back to the community. We have over 2 million plus installs worldwide, a whole bunch of supported platforms, games submitted through our database, and of course, media submitted through our community as well. So as you know, we have a giveaway that's going on right now with some fantastic prizes that are up for grabs. An ROG Ally X, an NVIDIA Shield TV, a Odin 2 Pro, mini PC. So all fantastic devices that you can use LaunchBox on. We have some Steam keys that are giving away through various forum events. And of course, you can win some licenses. So I'm sure a lot of you are already in this sweepstakes. And I know you're all waiting for a secret code that will be making an appearance on this stream. Not quite yet, but later on in the stream, it will be making an appearance. So definitely stick around. That code will get you some additional entries into your prize giveaway. So more on that later, but that will be coming. So I know everyone is very excited for that. Hello from the Philippines. Wow, we really are all over. Okay, so just to quickly talk you through the schedule before we get started, just so you can have an idea of what you might want to participate in this week. We have live streams that are going on every single day this week. So, for example, here we're getting started with a hands-on workshop with LaunchBox. Tomorrow, I'm going to be continuing this with a more sort of advanced setup. And so hopefully by the end of tomorrow, you really will be in the know of a lot of the sort of powerful workflows and features if you're a brand new user. And hopefully if you're a recurring user, you have learned something new along the way. So I'll be hosting these 2 workshops tomorrow. We have a workshop on Wednesday to do with code and plugins, and for any developers out there, this one gets a little bit more technical, so definitely hop in there if that's your cup of tea. We have a theme workshop on Thursday where we'll be talking about the Game Discovery Center and how to code amazing themes. And then Friday, which is our final stream, is going to be really fun. We're going to be hanging out, we're going to be answering some questions, and we're going to be playing some games as well. So definitely stick around. These streams will be made available afterwards as well. You can rewatch them on our Twitch channel for a short period of time if you didn't happen to make any of them. I know that some of the timings, and we're all global here, so definitely catch those if you didn't have a chance. Just to quickly give you an overview of what these other events are. So we have some posts up that give overviews of some of our team members, just to hopefully give a bit more of a personal touch. But what we do have is all of these 3, which are going on every single day, have some Steam keys that are up for grabs. So for example, right now we have something called the Great Game Gauntlet, which is going on. And this is just a fun little way for us to engage in some conversations, and this is all themed on video game collections. So LaunchBox is the sort of central piece of our game collections, and there are a lot of game collections out there that will sort of package retro games into modern, updated packages. So this is what the Great Game Gauntlet is all about. You can see we've got some great prizes up for grabs. An unreleased game, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. And all you need to do to be in a chance to win that is simply to just participate in the event by posting a comment. So for example, day 1 here, we've got some great conversations going on. You can vote on a game that will make it through to the next round, and the winning game for each day, that is the game where we will be distributing keys among the winners. So already we've got some fantastic ones here. The question for today is, which classic game series would you like to see released as a collection? So a lot of these games here, sort of classic series that have games from their past bundled into a single collection. All right, hello from Australia, Argentina, Canada. Amazing. So what we also have is 2 community playlists going on right now. So you can contribute to some playlists that will eventually make it into the Game Discovery Center. We'll talk about that later on. But again, some more Steam keys up for grabs here. And all you simply have to do is just submit some ideas. This one here is talking about the top 5 your personal top 5 games of all time. There's no right or wrong answer here. And that is so that we can hopefully share with the community some, what people are playing and what are their favorite games. So got some great Steam keys up for grabs here, some unreleased games, some release games. And with these, there'll be some chances, if you are a winner, to pick the key that you want. We understand that everyone has sort of different gaming tastes. And so those are up for grabs. So keep an eye on this page. All of our events are linked out through this page. Jump in. Hopefully it'll be a fun week for everyone. And I think we're going to go ahead and get started with the actual stream now. But come in, get comfy. If anyone just joined, my name is AstroBob, the new person on the team here. But very happy to be here and happy to kick off our celebration. Okay. Thank you all so much for the any subs that are coming through here. This chat is definitely going a lot quicker than it was when we were testing this, so I do apologize if I missed some messages, and very kind subscriptions there, so thank you all so much. And that's right. So for anyone who was just coming in, so yes, we know that there is a secret code for the giveaway, which will boost your odds in the prize pool. That will be coming a little bit later on in the stream. And I will say that that code is only valid for today. So different codes will be given out on different streams. So that's just so that you're aware. So when you do get it, just use it as soon as you can. And of course, it's in your interest to keep it to yourself. Obviously, boost your own chances of winning, but it will only be valid for the day. Okay, we're going to go ahead and jump in. So I just want to give a quick overview. I know a lot of us are LaunchBox veterans here, but for anyone who's new around here, who may have wandered in through the sale or who might be new, so we are LaunchBox. We make LaunchBox for Windows and Android, and we also make BigBox. And we are celebrating 11 years. Cranky. It's been a very long time, from a single person to a growing team, and of course a growing community alongside it. So the apps are our bread and butter. It's what we do. It's what we focus on. We all are in it for game collecting, and we all love retro games, and hopefully a lot of you do as well. But if you haven't heard of us before, or you're just joining, we obviously offer an app for Windows and Android, but we also have a thriving community on our forums. So that's where a lot of our events are taking place. Definitely grab an account and jump in. I just want to, maybe a shameless self-plug here, but our new Community Corner section is where a lot of these events are happening. And also this is a great place where we're going to be offering some new and interesting ways for folks to engage as we go forward, not just throughout this week, but beyond as well. You may have also seen our LaunchBox Games database. This is the site that hosts a lot of the media that sort of forms a lot of the front end that is LaunchBox. This is an amazing place where you can actually submit media for games that might be obscure or things that are missing from our app. And it really is a community-driven effort so that we can all enjoy, rich visual media inside of our LaunchBox instances. And that's right. Links are in the chat. Thank you all very much. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and the agenda for today is that we're going to be setting up a brand new LaunchBox build from scratch. We're going to show you what it's like to very quickly get some games up and running. If you haven't done this in a while, if this is the first time that you're actually doing this, then hopefully you'll learn something today. Just before we do, I want to highlight something that, because I'm seeing a couple of questions in the chat. What we do have going on is our AMA. Now, this is not actually listed on the website because it's related to one of our streams, but if you have any dying questions, we'll obviously try and get through some of them on stream as well, on this stream. But throughout the week, if you have any sort of questions, then definitely pop them into this thread. What we're going to be doing is on our final stream, we're going to be curating and answering these questions with our development team. But we're also going to be summarizing these questions into a post that will go on here as well. So you'll get some answers either way. We'll also obviously try and answer what we can on stream today. But if you do have any burning questions and you want to make sure it gets an official answer, then definitely drop them into our AMA thread over here. Okay, and don't worry, anyone who's joining, the code has not been given out yet. The code's going to come a little bit later on, so get comfy and hang around, and we'll make sure you all know very clearly when that is available. All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and jump in. Okay. So what we have is LaunchBox, something I'm sure you're all very aware of. This is a brand new build of LaunchBox. I'm currently on the latest beta right now. It has some exciting new features that are due to be released very soon, and we'll definitely be showing off some of those, probably in tomorrow's more advanced stream. But what we have when we first load up LaunchBox is a blank new instance will automatically import games that you have installed on disk. So if you use things like Steam or Xbox or GOG, it will scan directories and it will actually install those, it will import those games from those storefronts. So what I have here is a brand new instance with some platforms, which is Windows. I am using Steam. It's gone and it's grabbed those games and it's imported them directly into LaunchBox. Nice little mixture here. I've picked up some games in the recent summer sale. As you can see, I've been playing a lot of Grand Blue Fantasy, but also got some classics on here. Some old classics, SimCity 3000. Any SimCity fans? Roller Coaster Tycoon, yep. That brings back memories. Worms Armageddon, Sonic Adventure 2. But also need to get stuck into Kingdom Hearts at some point, but that is a big undertaking. Pac-Man, exactly, yep. Championship Edition, one of my favorite games. Okay. So this is looking pretty light right now, so I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some more games. And yes, Relink is awesome. I haven't got very far in it yet, but it is fantastic. Pizza Tower, yeah, also a good shout. Okay, so a lot of you, if you've been using LaunchBox for a while, there are various ways that you can get games into LaunchBox. We have import wizards, we have drag and drop, but one of the more recent methods, which I personally really love and I want to show off today, is the auto import. Now, a brand new instance of LaunchBox will have this feature that is enabled, which is automated imports. Now, you can, of course, turn this off. It's not necessary if you don't want to use it, but I personally find it very, very useful, and I'm going to show you why. Yeah, my library looks like your library. Won't be for long. We are just about to go and fill this out. So, in your LaunchBox directory on Windows, if you hop into LaunchBox, you have a games directory. This is created right off the bat. And this will automatically have a whole bunch of platforms in it. Now, I know it can seem overwhelming as to why I would ever use any of these platforms, but the idea is that the folders are there in case you do need them in the future. And it is simply a case of just dragging and dropping games into these folders. And what will happen, it will automatically add those games into your library. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. I've got some games. We've got some platforms here. Any picks on which ones should go in first? Any favorites? We've got some Game Boy, some Nintendo systems, GameCube, some Sega systems, PlayStation. Some of the traditional ones. Nothing too fancy here. PS1, PSP, yep, good shout. NES. Let's start off with that because it's nice and simple, and then we'll get everything here in the long run anyway. So basically, all you want to do is find the corresponding platform, so Nintendo Entertainment System, and I have a small selection of games here. I'm just going to copy and paste over there, and we're going to go back to LaunchBox. And it's going to go ahead and refresh metadata in the background, and it's actually going to import those games and create the platforms for you. Previously in the past, we've seen a lot of people sort of create platforms and then have to import games afterwards. We really wanted to make this process as simple as possible, so the idea is that you just drag and drop, and if those platforms don't exist, it's going to go ahead and create that for you. Yep, Arcade, N64, PS2, all good shouts. We're going to get them all in there. We're going to have a nice little collection by the end of this. Now, this is the first time that it's refreshing metadata from the database, but once that's done, I now have a new consoles section with Nintendo Entertainment System, and there we go. Fantastic. Small little selection there, but some good ones. I have a personal affinity for Ice Climbers, even though it is objectively a terrible game. It's still fun. Okay. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and add a couple more platforms. Why don't we do all of them? We'll do... I'm going to save some of them for later because I want to show specific import processes. So let's take Game Boy, Game Boy Advance. Let's take Game Gear, Genesis, PS1, PSP, and SNES. So we're going to go ahead and paste those. We're going to save disk-based games for later on, just to show you some... and there we go, 96 games for 8 platforms was successfully imported. We've got Genesis, it's just going to go ahead and grab media in the background. And exactly, nice and straightforward. So that's kind of what we aim for. I know that the auto-import can sort of sometimes be a little bit confusing, and especially if you don't adhere to this sort of folder structure. So of course you can turn it off. We're not going to cover it today. There are ways that you can host your ROMs in different locations as well. We understand that not everyone wants to have their ROMs within the games directory inside of LaunchBox. You might have them on external hard drives, things like that. So we'll probably cover that tomorrow. But right out of the gate, if you sort of have a smaller collection or you want to keep things portable, we definitely recommend giving auto import a shout. So there we go. We've got a brand new handhelds category. It created that as well. In the top left, we're looking at platform categories. This is where you get things grouped by sort of computers, consoles, handhelds. But of course, you have different views. We're going to look at those in a second. While this is downloading media, what I do want to show is, so auto import is a very nice and quick way to get everything in from your games from ROMs. But storefronts are actually handled differently. So when we're looking at things like Steam, this is handled by going to Manage Storefronts. Now in here, this is where you get the option to say what storefronts LaunchBox will grab games from. So automatic imports on startup. So that's why LaunchBox went and imported my Steam games, because I have this enabled. You can turn that off, and that's independent of the auto import ROM settings. Likewise, you can actually configure the different storefronts with different criteria. So for example, with Steam, I can say only import all installed games, or I could go and I could actually say, well, actually just import all of my Steam games. And of course, you can configure that for different stores. Things like Epic Games, for example, I'm sure we've all got a huge library of free games that we're never going to play. So I like to leave that on just installed, but maybe on Steam where it's a bit more curated, I can actually set that to all games. It asks you to log in, and then of course you just log in with your details. Yep, some people like to keep LaunchBox portable. You certainly can. If you follow that structure, then you can simply move your LaunchBox folder to a different machine. All your ROMs, all your emulators, everything comes with it. So definitely a nice way of doing it. Yep, free game since 2019. Okay. So we've got some nice systems in here. We've got things like Nintendo 64, Sega Genesis, Aladdin, Lion King, fantastic games. And what it's done is it's gone and imported a certain subset of media for these games. Not everything. When you use the auto import feature, it imports 4 different types of media. So to view your media, you can simply go to Media and View Images. So we've got a box front, we've got a clear logo, a background, and a screenshot. These are the 4 types that it imports with auto import. There are a whole bunch of other different types of media, and we're going to show you how to get that up and running. You'll definitely want to leverage that if you use something like BigBox, because that really benefits from having a rich variety of media. But certainly to get started, it's not bad. We've just got box fronts. Up in the top left here, we have the image group option. So you can change that if, for example, you wanted to see things like clear logos. That could be quite nice. Or, for example, if you wanted to see screenshots, you can adjust this on the fly with how you want to view your games. I personally prefer boxes. Love to just see all of those nostalgic memories coming back when I'm going from my library. Exactly, yep. Nice flat 2D. Me too, I'm definitely in that camp. I know a lot of people are fans of 3D boxes as well. You have the option to look at 3D boxes. That's an image type that you can grab. And yes, of course, you can add videos as well. So we're not just restricted to images. We can grab things like music, videos, and manuals, which we're going to cover as well. But I'm just going to show you some of the what we can do now that we've got these games up and running. So on the left-hand side here is we have the sidebar. So like I said, this is where you can view your platforms. If you click here, you can actually change what you're looking at. So for example, if you wanted to sort games by a different bit of metadata. So for example, if you wanted to sort by genre, if you wanted to, for example, look at the regions of your games. And of course, pretty self-explanatory, but there are some really hidden things in here that I think are really nice. One of these views that's really interesting is games missing media. This is really good. because it actually will help you sort of fill out those games that you're missing. You can use the audit log as well, which is a feature we're going to look at. But if you had games that were missing like 3D boxes, for example, obviously all of mine currently are. Okay. So we're going to go back to platform categories over here. This is the view that I personally prefer to use. When we click on a game over on the right-hand side, we have the game details view. If you want to hide that, you can go to show hide and just turn off the game details. If you want more of a sort of full screen view, Control-T just quickly brings that up. And this is a nice way to look at the metadata of the games that we have. Now you can customize what shows up in here. You know, some of these fields may not be relevant to all of you. So you can actually customize what shows up here. And of course, this is dependent on the theme that you're using inside of LaunchBox. But these two sort of windows on the left and right surrounding your games, very useful for sort of narrowing down what you want to play. Yep, exactly. Missing media view. It's definitely have a look through here to find some of these views are really good for sort of filling out metadata. I think another one that's quite useful is LaunchBox database ID, so you can actually see which games were correctly linked to the LaunchBox database, and ones that weren't will show up in this view here that has none, so you can go ahead and correct that. And that's quite a nice view. Most of the other ones are more sort of metadata based. Likewise, if you want to narrow stuff down, we have a filter option here. Very underutilized in my opinion. I didn't realize, or I sort of knew it was there, but I didn't really use it for a long time. But of course, our collection is pretty small right now, but when you have hundreds, thousands of games, this is a really nice way to narrow stuff down. So you can narrow stuff down by things like genre, platform, region, like we talked about. If you hit Control-E or go to Edit and Edit Metadata, this is where we can actually edit the metadata of the game. So for example, I'm going to mark a game as favorite. I like that feature. So what are some favorite games? What should we mark? Let's see. Well, definitely Aladdin on the Sega Genesis. I think that definitely deserves it. The soft spot for Sonic Spinball. Again, objectively a terrible game, but absolutely fantastic music. You'll also notice at the top here we have the badges section. So badges can be really useful for identifying certain aspects of your games. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. And I'm going to go ahead and under game attributes say enabled favorites. So now I get a little star next to the games that I favorited, which is great. I'm also going to turn on storefronts and I'm going to turn on Steam. This is quite useful for identifying where games came from. So you can see my Steam games. They have this nice little Steam icon next to them. Exactly, yes. It should be in the top 5 list. Terrible game with awesome music. Yes, it makes up... that game's music makes up for a lot of its shortcomings. I replayed that recently, and yeah, that final boss can just go away. It is frustrating, to put it lightly. Okay, I know we haven't even played any games yet. We're sort of focusing on how we can massage our collection here to look at it in a way that is relevant to us. What I also want to highlight is the arrange by. Again, this is something I didn't touch for a really long time, and it's just, by default, it's arranging games by the title. But a really nice thing that I quite like is if you change that to release year. So release date year. And so now if I go to my whole collection, you can sort of scroll through by year. You can see as time went on sort of what... and this is the release year of the game. It's not when it was added. Obviously, this is a small collection, but this could be quite nice. Especially when you start creating playlists. I find this quite useful for... I like to create playlists of like favorite developers or favorite series, things like that. And then you can arrange it by the release year, so you can kind of see things in chronological order, which I think is quite nice. Okay, one final thing is the search option up here. So this is simply for very quickly searching for a game. So we've got some Kirby games here. Let's put this back to title. But what a recent addition is the advanced search. Now this is a really nice feature because it allows you to quickly on the fly search for things without having to create playlists or put filters, for example. So you can see here, these are all the fields that you can search for. You can type the full name or the short code. So for example, if I wanted to find games where the publisher, let's say, was Nintendo, you could literally just type pub and then Nintendo, and now it's going to show all games that were published by Nintendo. Likewise, if I wanted to search by region, for example, I could say region is Japan, and then we've got some Japan exclusive games. The nice thing about this is that it sticks when you are jumping between platforms. So let's say, for example, genre is adventure. And then as I scroll through these different platforms, you'll see that the search actually stays there. So I can say, oh, this is what I'm in the mood for today. I'm going to go into this platform. So you can see it's a really nice way of just very quickly narrowing things down without having to create playlists or scroll through large lists. Okay. Alrighty, so we looked at badges, we looked at metadata. One final thing I want to quickly look at is we also, when I imported those games, I'm going to turn on this badge here called multiple versions and multiple disks. I'm going to turn on documents as well for later. Final Fantasy VII, famous example, came on multiple disks. You can see here it's got this 3 little disks icon. So what is that? Well, when I imported this folder, it did actually have all 3 disks. So Final Fantasy Disk 1, 2, 3. And instead of creating those as separate games, it's gone ahead and it's bundled them together using a feature that we call additional apps. Now, this is, in my opinion, massively underrated feature. Additional apps is basically a way for you to essentially categorize different applications under a single entry in LaunchBox. So it's a great example for things like multi-disk. It's also a great example for things like multi-region. So if you have multiple regions of a game that you want to retain, you don't have to create different instances of them. It will bundle them under the same instance and it will give you that option. Likewise, when I right-click, you'll have this option that says play version, so I can choose which disk I want to do. I'm going to show you an example with region because we didn't import GameCube yet, and I have some multi-region games in here. Go ahead and paste that. Yep, exactly. Putting it all under one. Personally, really love this feature, and I'll show you another example of what this does. So, Donkey Konga. Hands up if anyone had their DK bongos back in the day. I made the horrible mistake of selling mine. Dumb kid who needed some money. Definitely regret that decision. So I no longer have my DK bongos. Very, very sad. But what I did recently learn is that the track list for this game is completely different depending on the region that you're in. They have completely exclusive track lists. I had the European version. The Japanese and American versions are all different. Now, this little icon here shows that there are additional apps for this game. So in my directory, I actually have 3 versions of Donkey Konga. Europe, Japan, and America. And what it's done is under additional apps, it's gone ahead and it knows to actually categorize them under the same game. Now, what you can do, and again, I didn't realize this feature existed until quite recently, is if you want to have those as their own instance, you can. The auto import will try and be clever and categorize those for you. But if you right click, you have the option to expand selected games. And it will say additional apps will be essentially split out into their own games. I'm going to hit yes. And now I've got 3 instances of Donkey Konga, and they are using the 3 different versions that I have. And of course, you can actually very quickly put those back. You can say combine selected games. I actually want to keep those separately. Sorry, I want to keep those together. I'm going to choose Europe as the root game, and I'm going to hit OK. And there we go. It's merged back together again. Exactly. That's a really great example. Subsets for retro achievements. That is a fantastic example. I personally do that as well. With retro achievements, you at least right now, you need different variations of the ROM in order to play subsets. So having those linked under a single instance with additional apps is a fantastic use case. Yeah, ROM hacks and license games. I think I did that with Luigi's Mansion recently. There was a sort of prototype demo, and rather than having that as its own instance. Just got it linked nicely under the single entry in LaunchBox. I think someone was asking recently about retro achievements. There is integration with retro achievements. We're probably not going to cover that today, but we definitely will cover that tomorrow in the more advanced workshop. Amazing. Glad to hear that there are some nuggets of wisdom, some workflows that we're all still learning. Okay, so I know we still haven't actually played any games, but we've got a few more things to do before we go ahead and actually play some games. I think one of the things that makes LaunchBox special is that we definitely obsess over how we arrange these games, and maybe spend a little bit too much time arranging instead of actually playing. But I think if we spend a bit of time up front, it's going to be worth it in the long run. Exactly, I love that. LaunchBox is a game. Maybe we should have LaunchBox achievements. Wouldn't that be nice? Exactly, it has to be perfect. And the emulator life. So, like I said, when you use auto import, it's only bringing in 4 bits of media. And that's cool. It gives me everything that I want, but we want more. We want more media. So one of our integrations is with a fantastic platform called MU Movies. You can sign up for an account there, and that allows you to bring in not just different variations of media, but some things that aren't stored in the games database, things like manuals and music and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and grab media for a whole bunch of things. Now, a quick way you can do this is you could highlight a couple of games. Let's highlight this N64 collection, and we'll go to Tools, Download, and Update Metadata and Media. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to go to the Audit tool. This is another underutilized feature that I think is really great. We're going to go to Tools, Audit, and we're going to go to All Games. Now, this is a small library, but obviously if it was much larger, this could be quite useful for identifying things that you don't have and actually doing something from this view. So although it looks scary, this is basically all of our games in one big list with all of the metadata you could ever want. All I really care about is over here, it shows me what images I have. So for example, I have, where is it? I think it's box fronts. Yeah, box fronts, I've got one image, but what I don't have is box backs. Now, this is really what I want, and I also want splines, and I'm going to show you why in a second. All I'm going to do is hit Control-A, right-click, and I'm going to download metadata for everything. This wizard is going to talk me through what I want. Now, this view is quite useful because it says how many images per image group do you want. Now, this is set at 1. It's personally what I use, but if you want to increase this, it will basically grab more than one image for that group. And things like, box fronts, for example, if you have more than one, it will actually cycle through them in your collection. So totally user preference. I like to leave this at 1. And of course, there's a whole bunch of image types that you can grab. It's ticked on the sort of most useful ones that it does by default. But the ones I do want is box spline and box back. That one is already selected. And yeah, I think, thanks for answering that, Farron. I think you can export from this audit view, or you can copy and paste from this view, right? Okay, so I'm gonna hit next. Now, I'm already logged into MU Movies, which is why it gives me this second dialog. This is totally optional, you don't have to have it, but the reason I want MU Movies is because I want to grab manuals. This is a feature that I really love. Things like music, you can grab videos and things, and that works really well in Big Box. For now, I'm okay with that. I just want to grab the manuals. And I'm going to hit next. I'm going to say, this one recommended. Yes, don't overwrite anything, just add new media, and then I'm going to hit finish. Okay. That's, yeah, there we go. Results can be copied into Excel. So you can use this to sort of audit and get a sort of data dump of your database if you want. Okay, So it's updated metadata for those games. It's going to go ahead and start downloading that media in the background, and that's probably going to take a while. So we're going to let it do its thing. We're going to move on. One of the really cool things that I do want to show you is our 3D boxes. Again, more like playing LaunchBox like a game. It's really nice to reminisce over the sort of boxes that we used to have. I personally, again, you'll notice a trend of dumb decisions as a kid. Threw away all my lovely cardboard Game Boy Advance boxes. Sold all my Super Nintendo games. Very, very poor decisions there as mini-me. But what we can do is, if you right-click and you go to Media, we have this View 3D Box Model. Which is lovely. You can spin that around. And there we go. Because it grabbed the back box, that's what I was looking for. So we've got this nice 3D model. You can zoom in and out. You can sort of spin it around. And it's actually added the spline. That's the other image type that I downloaded. And it's got a lovely back box there. Let's go to GameCube. Those had some pretty cool boxes. Go to Kirby's Air Ride, a classic View 3D box model. Oh, and yes, you're absolutely right. Spines, not splines. That's my bad. There's spines. Why do I keep saying splines? So there we go. It's actually grabbed that from the games database, and it's added the back box as well, which is lovely. Absolutely lovely. Look at that. Look at that. Even matched it all up. Looks fantastic. Exactly. Finding out what to rent, judging the game by the back box. What we can do is in the game detail panel over here, I'm going to go to Tools and Options, and under Game Details, I have the option to actually show the 3D model here. This is where you can customize the game details, what I was talking about earlier. These are all the fields that it shows, and you can actually narrow this down. Like, I'm personally not interested in things like Wikipedia URL. I don't want the... Where is it? Like video URL, source, for example, file, and custom fields. Let's just turn those off. That's just going to make this view on the right-hand side a little bit more concise. Let's quickly go back into... Fantastic. My media has completed downloading. It said that there are some errors. Let's see what that is. And it's just one file that it wasn't able to download. That's fine. I don't really care about that. I could always re-download it if I wanted. So now, for example, Kirby's Air Ride, you can see here now I've got a 3D box that I can view right here, which is even more fantastic. I can go full screen if I want to. And there we go. These boxes actually come in real handy when you're in big box. We're going to look at that in a second. And that's really nice for, you know, before you pick up a game, you can kind of spin the box around just because we can. Why not? Let's be honest. There isn't a real practical use to this other than just making us happy. Now, speaking of things that, again, we also probably won't use but make us happy, is we also grab some manuals. And I really love this feature. I was playing through some GameCube games recently with the Retro Achievements launch. And it's funny that a lot of those games still don't really tell you how to play. And that's cool, but what I can do is I can just pop over the manual. Of course, I can go on my phone and I can Google it, but if I'm in Big Box or LaunchBox, I can literally pull this up right away. I play on a handheld, I play on a Lenovo Legion Go, so it's, you know, I'm away from the computer. It's really easy for me just to pull up this manual and actually see what it looked like. So you'll see, because we've got manuals and I have the manuals badge on, I now have a little manual icon. What I'm going to do is go to Media and View Manual. And there we go. These are just PDFs that it downloads. Look at that. The original scanned manual in all its glory. Now, we'll show you how you can view these in Big Box. I personally prefer viewing them over there, but yep, we now have some manuals. Someone says, do we support RVZ format games in LaunchBox for achievements? That question is relating to the badge system, and LaunchBox will tell you if you have, it will give you a badge if you have achievements for that game. RVZ, which is a format for GameCube, is currently not supported by the RA hasher, which is what we use. So it's only ISO at the moment that will show those badges. Hopefully that will change in the future. But of course, in terms of support, you can still obviously play those games through LaunchBox. It's just the integration will not show you as having achievements for those games. LaunchBox VR. Now that is a good idea. Because let's be honest, how much money and time would you spend just doing this? Just spinning these boxes around. I mean, let's be honest. Maybe not much. Okay, so we looked at the audit log. We batch downloaded a whole bunch of media. I think this collection is looking pretty good. There are a couple of platforms that we missed out that we're just going to go and add to round this out. We've got PlayStation 1. We're going to put in PlayStation 2 because that has a bit more of an advanced way of getting up and running. And I think we also missed out on Dreamcast. How could we miss out on Dreamcast? Exactly. All the time we spend browsing, no time to play. It's definitely worth the upfront effort. You know, we definitely do spend way too much time curating, but once you've kind of got it up and running, you will be very happy to just sit down and enjoy it. I love that. VR putting cartridges into an NES. That would be fantastic. Gotta blow and slam it down. Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. Exactly. Simulate the blowing on the cartridges, wiping the CDs. Realizing as a kid that you should never touch the laser reader on a disc-based system. Anyone else do that? Yeah, my Dreamcast hasn't recovered from that. Okay, so we got some new platforms. This is looking good. PS2, again, small subset, but some goodies here. SX3, absolutely fantastic game. We notice we've got a game here that isn't showing media. Now, it is actually download that media. If you ever see this happen, there is an option if you go to, where is it? Refresh selected images, or F5. All it's doing is that in this view, it hasn't loaded that media. If you hit F5, it's just going to refresh the media, and then that image will show. Some people see this and think, oh, why this game doesn't have media? They actually check it, and it does. It's just that you just need to refresh those images. And if you were to just hop out of the view and back in, it would actually show up. But just a quick tidbit there in case anyone's wondering, like, why is it doing that? Let's see, likewise, we've got some other ones here. Now, this one actually didn't find any media. This one actually has no media. So this is where we could go through using our audit log. We could see which ones don't have media. We can go and download it. We could also use this view here, which is games missing media. Let's just quickly update that. Let's go to, here we go, games missing boxes. Oh, and that's why it was actually still downloading them in the background. Someone says, are we taking questions on Discord? We do try to answer questions on Discord. If you're talking about something specific to LaunchBox, we have the AMA thread going on, which might be a nice place. Or, of course, you can ask here. But wherever it is, we will do our best to get you sorted. Oh, you guys are making me dream now. Add retro commercial collections. I've often thought this would be such a good feature. It's like, yeah, collections of all of the like obscure Japanese commercials for a single game, for example. Like, that'd be amazing. I know a lot of people actually, and they do it very successfully, I might add, is some people like to add things like strategy guides and magazines and things like that to their LaunchBox games as additional media types. You know, just really kind of completing, it's not just the game itself, it's all the media that supports it. In fact, advertisement flyer is actually one of the media types that you can grab, and those can be really cool. It wasn't selected here, but yeah, advertisement flyer front and back. You can get some interesting results with those, especially for arcade games. I find that you can find some very fun and obscure, and especially with arcade, you can even get images, things like the arcade cabinet, the board, the circuit, things like that. All of this stuff that is maybe not so useful, but just incredibly fun to have. Got the premium Windows version. Well, thank you very much. We hope you enjoy it. Okay, so we're almost ready to actually play some games. Can you believe it? And we've also passed the 1,000 follower mark on Twitch, so thank you very much. And for those that are asking, don't worry. You haven't missed the code yet. The code's we haven't forgotten, but we've got a few more things to show off, and we'll make sure that you get that code. So before we actually play, the final thing I want to show is creating some playlists. Like I said, you can search, filter on the fly, and these are nice, quick ways to sort of narrow stuff down on the go. But if you want to create a more sort of permanent collection, then we highly recommend using playlists. Now, there is a playlist category where you can sort of create playlists. That's where they all show up. But I actually personally prefer to stay within the platform category view. And there's a couple of really easy ways you can do this. The first is that if you actually set a filter, so I'm going to say, show me my favorite games. And let's add a few more to that before we do. Kirby's Air Ride, Luigi's Mansion, and 1,000 Year Door. I've selected 3 items. If I hit Control E, this is the bulk edit wizard, or you can go to Open Bulk Edit Wizard. This is where I can change metadata across multiple games. So I'm going to say I want to change the favorite field, and I want to tick it. And there we go. So now it's favorited all of those games. I'm going to go to favorite and hit yes. Now, what I could do is create a playlist matching this criteria, but this is a feature that I also didn't realize was there until very recently, is under the filter panel, you can actually do save filter to new playlist. It says a static playlist will be created with your current filter, which is great. I'm going to call it favorites. I'm going to hit OK. Whoops. Let's try that again. I actually saved that in the wrong place. Favorite games. Under parents, this is where we control where the playlist is going to live. Now, the one I created earlier, it's just going to go into that playlists view. But if I want it to show up here, you have to choose essentially the parent of the playlist. I'm going to choose the root. And what that means is it's going to show up, or it should have shown up. Let's see where that went. Here we go. Let's tidy this up a little bit. All right, favorites. Let's put this at root. There we go. So now I've got my favorites playlist. You'll notice a little badge. There are certain playlists in LaunchBox that will have badges associated with them. That's a section for the more advanced workshop. But the final thing is that this favorites is kind of stuck right in the middle of these consoles and handhelds. And personally, I like to keep that a bit more tidy. So what you can do is if you go to edit, you have this thing called sort title. Now right now it's doing it by alphabetical. That's why it's, you know, computers, favorites, handhelds. But if I want to bump this to the top, by the way, I don't endorse this workflow. It's my own personal workflow. I'm sure there's a better way to do this. But for example, if I was to just put the sort title as something like underscore, it essentially jumps that to the top. Just a quick hack. Again, that's probably a better way of doing that. But the sort title is very useful for arranging games. A good example here is things like Roman numerals. They will not arrange them in the order that we would want. So for example, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, they use the Roman numerals to sort it. So what you can do is for this game, you could say, well, actually, I don't want it to sort as Final Fantasy VII. I want it to sort as Final Fantasy actual 7. And that means that in my list, it's going to order those games in the correct order rather than using the Roman numerals. So sort order can be applied to games. It can be applied to playlists. It's really, really useful for just kind of tidying up the order of some of those things. Exactly. Been a godsend, really useful. Also really love that feature. Okay, we've got a favorites playlist, and we're going to do one more thing with playlists, which is if we right click on a console, you have this option called auto generate child playlists. Now, I didn't realize this until quite recently, but this is a really useful feature. And what it will do is it will generate some playlists based on the metadata of that game. So for example, it will create a playlist called All Games, which is useful for inside a big box. It will also create a favorites playlist, which is what we just did, but it's doing it for that specific console. Genres, play modes. You've got basically a bunch of self-explanatory options here. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And what that's done is it's created a whole bunch of playlists under Super Nintendo. For example, I've got all games, I've got favorites, which are none, single players, it's got various genres, multiplayer, cooperative, things like that. So this is more of a sort of permanent way if you prefer to view your collection like this. And especially in big box, for example, when you're in big box, you may not have access to sort of quick searches and filters, and or at least not as easy access to a mouse and keyboard to do that. So these can be really useful for narrowing things down inside of that setup. Amazing. Thank you for the subscription there. Okay, I think we're ready to actually play some games. Can you believe that? It's nearly time to play some games. So let's take Super Nintendo. Cool Spot, that was a good game. I'm going to go ahead and double click on this. And this is the first time we're trying to launch a game. So it's going to say in more recent versions of LaunchBox, it's going to suggest RetroArch as the emulator of choice. I'm just going to hit yes, please install it. You'll notice that there's no configuration here. I'm not having to put anything on disk. For older users of LaunchBox, you may remember that there was an option to manage RetroArch here. So under manage, there used to be an option called RetroArch. This hasn't gone away. It's just that it's been moved because we now use a system where we sort of pluginize various emulators. So we support things like RetroArch, PCSX2, Dolphin, things like that. And I'll show you what this actually does once it finishes installing. Yes, a very popular question is, are we on Linux? Definitely, I'm surprised it's not. I think it might be already, but definitely pop that one in the AMA. Steam Deck would be lovely. It's actually, personally, the reason I chose to pick up a Windows handheld in the first place was because LaunchBox was on Windows, and I know that is a very, very popular request. Okay, so RetroArch is now up and running. To show folks who may have seen it here previously, if you go to Manage Emulators, you'll now see that it's got RetroArch. If you actually double click on this, this is where you can update the version of RetroArch if you want. So with that old menu where it'd say like, update RetroArch, this is how you would do it from here. And it actually tells you now, it sort of says if it's up to date or not. Yeah, some good questions. What is your favorite system? I mean, that's a very hard question. I think it's probably got to be GameCube, personally. Just been having a lot of fun with that recently, and also some very good memories with that. So let's go ahead and actually double click, and there we are. We are into RetroArch, playing Cool Spot. Hands up if anyone actually played Cool Spot. And when I say played, I'm talking about like, I think I played like the first level, and that was it. But you know what it's like. You endlessly replay the first level over and over again, and that is enough. It's enough to simply just play the first level. Well, hey. Yeah, some Cool Spot fans. I mean, we could get distracted and spend the whole stream doing this, but we're going to hit escape and again, and that's going to quit RetroArch. Yeah, Pizza Hut Noid game. Oh man, that's a someone should put that in the game gauntlet if they haven't already, which is a food licensed games collection. Like, get the McDonald's game in there, maybe get the Burger King game in there. That would be good. Okay, so most of these systems that use RetroArch, things like everything up to things like GameCube and PS2, all of these systems will use RetroArch. So, for example, go to Sega Genesis, maybe Aladdin, for example, just double click and boom, I am in. RetroArch is configured, it's set up. If you press F1, this is where you jump into RetroArch's configuration, but of course, we'll save that for another day. RetroArch is a whole sort of other beast. You can go in and configure things like shaders and a whole bunch of other sort of upscaling options, things like that. But for now, in terms of getting up and running and sort of getting playing, we are going to leave it at that. We're going to do one more thing, and then I think it's time for code giveaway. We're also going to have a look at Big Box as well. But what I do want to show is there are various systems that require BIOS. Now, this can be a whole long topic, but the long story, the short version is that certain systems will require additional files in order to be emulated properly. One of those, usually disk-based systems, but not all. PlayStation 1 is one of those systems that requires a BIOS, and of course you do have to supply and acquire your own BIOS. But if I was to try and play, for example, Croc, another fantastic game, it's going to say, heads up, there are missing dependencies required to play this game. I'm going to say, okay, show me, what are those dependencies? And this is a relatively new section where you can actually see the required BIOS files for this specific platform. So it says you need one of these items, which is a sort of regional BIOS. Now, I have one of those. So all I'm going to do is go browse to File. I'm going to go to my BIOS, PS1, and here it is. And boom, that is now green. It's actually copied that BIOS file to the correct location inside of RetroArch, so I don't need to worry about where that is. LaunchBox actually manages that for me now. And there we go, hit OK. And now, when I try and play Croc again, there we go. PS1 up and running. Oh, and that audio is going to sound quite crispy on your side, but that is a very nostalgic boot logo. Fast forward that a little bit. Let's get into game. Hands up, anyone who played Croc, maybe on the PC? That's where I actually first played it, was on the PC. Again, another objectively bad game, but it's just a lot of fun, because who thought it was a good idea to map forward and left and right separately? You literally cannot, well, you can turn a little bit, but yeah, this game was famous for its kind of tank controls. It's kind of what makes it special, I guess. I mean, we could go through all day. Instances, how many total games do you have? There's actually a nice little option up here. It's very small. You might not be able to see it on the screen on the stream, but right next to the badges option, it says displaying 11 of 152 total games. This is a nice way that you can see not just the number that you're looking at, but the total. I know I've seen some people with 16,000. I think mine personally is like 2,000. And yes, exactly. Game control innovation doesn't always translate to fun. All right, we're going to have a look at one more system, and that is PS2. And the reason for that is because this is a system that does not use RetroArch. Although I think in theory it can, but the recommended way of doing it is with the standalone emulator, which is PCSX2. Now, if you go to Manage and Plugins, this is where you can see which emulators are supported as a sort of plugin in LaunchBox. Now, this can get a little bit confusing, but as a rule of thumb, just remember that updating and this plugin here is not the emulator itself. It is simply the plugin that is used to manage that emulator. I've probably butchered that description, but you may see notifications saying, hey, a plugin requires an update, like RetroArch plugin requires an update. That is not the emulator version of RetroArch. It is the plugin itself. Long story short, we don't need to dive into the details, but PCSX2 is a supported plugin. So what I'm going to do is let's play Simpsons Hit and Run. And it's going to say, we recommend PCSX2. I'm going to say, yes, please install. It's going to go ahead and install that in the background. And there we go. Now this is actually taking me to the PCSX2 install wizard. We're going to go ahead and go through here. It's asking me for my BIOS. Again, this is a system that also does require the BIOS, which I have. I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's going to ask me for a directory. I actually don't need that because LaunchBox is going to do the managing for me. So I'm just going to hit next. And there we go. So I'm going to close out of PCSX2 and we're going to try and reload the game. And there we go. It is literally as simple as that. Exactly. Hit and run. What a fantastic game. If I can remember what the controls are. And this was the days of... this generation was the days of unskippable intros and unskippable cutscenes. So thank goodness for fast forward in emulation. Because yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to get into this game just because of how long the intro is. But a fantastic game, if anyone. Exactly. This game hasn't got a remake. It is criminal. Okay, so we have literally, let's just take a step back and recap with what we got. So we've been going for an hour now, an hour and 10 minutes. We have all of our games up and running. We have the main emulators that are configured, not just RetroArch, but other ones as well. The same process would apply for something like Dolphin or things like Curry Jaguar, those emulators that we support as plugins. We have gone and grabbed a whole bunch of media metadata. We've got manuals. We have created some playlists. And we've gone ahead and we started playing some games. Now, of course, I'm sure without my yabbering for an hour, we could have got this up and running within maybe 15, 20 minutes. And that's really the goal that we've been trying to go for with these latest releases, is to make it as easy as possible. We know that obviously a lot of folks are sort of aware and very capable of configuring these things themselves. But of course, we want to try and make it as easily accessible to everyone. Okay, so I think it's that time, folks. We're actually going to have a look at the code. So just so everyone's aware of how this works, let's go to our giveaway. So our giveaway, which is ongoing at the moment, if you enter the giveaway, it uses a platform called Gleam. Now, be aware of this, because this is actually very important. Only choose the prizes that you actually want. And the reason I say that is because if you pick all of them, and of course you'd be very lucky, but each person only wins one prize. So for example, if you really wanted that ROG Ally X, but you also chose some licenses, you could win a license, but then you would have been out of the running to win the ROG Ally X. So just be aware of that. And obviously just pick the ones that you really do want, just so that we know that it's going to the right people. When you go through this, there are some ways that you can add additional entries for this giveaway, but one of the big ones is the secret code. If you put that secret code in, you will get a whole bunch of additional entries. And like I said, it is in your best interest to kind of keep this code within to yourselves, but also the code is only relevant for today. So if you were to try and do this tomorrow, that code wouldn't work. So once you do it, definitely put it in as soon as possible, and then you will benefit from those lovely additional entries. So, yep, can't see, that's because it's not there yet, but in 3, 2, 1, and somewhere on screen, there may be a code. And maybe if you put that code into a box, you might get some additional entries. So you can try. And of course, we hope it works. Please let us know if it doesn't. But I think extra bonus points to anyone who can actually tell us what that code is. Not just a random string of numbers. So yeah, let us know in the chat. And in fact, someone might have to remind me exactly. Code works. Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you for confirming that. Code's still up on the screen. Don't worry. We're going to leave it up there for the rest of this stream as well. So you'll have time to grab it. But we're not finished. We're actually going to carry on. We've got one more thing that we want to cover for today's stream. And then we can sort of take some questions, just kind of chill out for a little bit. But the one thing I do want to show us is BigBox. Now, BigBox is a complementary application to LaunchBox. It is included with LaunchBox Premium. And the idea behind BigBox is it is a way to utilize maybe arcade cabinets or sort of your home theater to play games away from your TV. It's optimized for things like controllers, and it's where our community has created some incredible themes for BigBox. Now, previously, BigBox was obviously a premium feature, but in the latest beta of LaunchBox and what will become 13.16, there is actually a free trial of BigBox. And what I mean by that is you can use and experience BigBox for 30 minutes free with your free license. The only thing that is restricted from that is you cannot launch games and you cannot use themes. You cannot utilize custom themes. But it is a really nice way if you're, this week, if you're a new user, or if you're considering picking up a license because they're on sale, you can actually try out BigBox. And all you have to do is launch BigBox from here, and it will actually tell you, hey, do you want to start a trial? Now, I already, and I should say, of course, because that feature is, I should clarify, because that feature is in the latest beta, you will need to be on that beta in order to utilize that. If you want to go onto the beta, you can go to options and just under updates, you can say update to beta releases, and then you'll be able to get on that beta. But that will be coming out very soon, shortly as well. So, just a quick question on the code before we move on. Will you release a new code? The secret code is usable once. And it is per day. So there won't, and maybe Farron, correct me if I'm wrong, there isn't, there will be a separate code tomorrow, but if you've already used the secret code, then you've already used the, you've already got the additional entries. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Okay. So let's actually go into BigBox. Let's see what this is about. Now, like I said, if you're on a free version, you would see a dialogue that just says, hey, there's a trial. Ooh, it's crunchy audio there. And I've just got to quickly move BigBox to my main screen. There we go. Okay. Now, this is where the magic happens, quite literally. This is the Game Discovery Center. Now, new instances of BigBox, this is where you will land. You can configure where you will land in BigBox, but the Game Discovery Center is a really great way to, sort of browse your collection, but also just find something to play. Like we talked about, we can spend endless amounts of time browsing for our collection, and the Discovery Center really helps us narrow things down. Similar to the sort of Netflix style where, what do I want to play next? And what this does is it curates and it categorizes games based on certain criteria, but in our upcoming release, you'll also start seeing hand-picked curated playlists. And this is where some of the events from this week come into play, because the games that you're contributing to those playlists will show up in this Discovery Center. And that's really great because we can, source games from our community, and our community can share things that they think other people would like. And it's really just a nice sort of interactive way to browse and see what is in your collection. So right now it's showing me some highly recommended games, and it's using that media that we downloaded previously. So it's got the logo, this is using the fan art to actually show these images here. very tempted, guys, to just jump in and play some of these. I mean, DuckTales, Kingdom Hearts 3, Crazy Taxi, Sonic Adventure 2. Wow, you've got to stop me from just jumping in and playing for the next hour. Okay. Let's scroll through and see what we've got. So we've got recently added games. This is everything that I just imported. We've got my consoles down here, which is fantastic. I could jump into one of these. But we've got here things like my favorite games, which is that playlist that I just created. Here we go. It says, because you recently played Cool Spot. I mean, we tried. What else? Pizza Tower, Aladdin, both versions. I mean, that's a question for you guys. Which is the supreme version of Aladdin, the SNES or the Genesis? I mean, I don't want to start a debate war in the chat here, but I know that's a pretty loaded question. Best of certain platforms, things like best of N64, best of Dreamcast. Now, obviously, my collection is quite small, and so there aren't going to be too many things, but here we go. This is an example of one of the curated playlists that we have. Game of the Year nominees. This is actually a hand-picked, hand-curated playlist by our team. Now, I've only got one game showing up here because my library is not that big, but yeah, this is an example of some of the additional types of playlists that you can see in here. Here we've got games developed by Capcom. That's a nice little playlist. And yeah, oh, I think Genesis is getting the overall vote there, but yeah, SNES for sound. If you do like Aladdin, without giving too much away, just I will say that maybe keep an eye on tomorrow's Game Gauntlet. Just a little heads up there. So I'm going to go and customize one little shortcut because I want to show you something fun here. I want to... I'm also going to turn off my game audio. Okay. So what I want to show you is under consoles. Let's take Game Boy Advance, for example. This is where we get into the different views within Big Box. Now, I set a shortcut for a function called Switch View, because what that does is it will show me a whole bunch of different ways to display this information. So right now it's using what we call vertical wheel. For example, I could change that to horizontal wheel. Pretty self-explanatory. I could also change this to something like wall view. This is one I personally quite like. If I just wanted a wall of games. Or, I know a lot of people are fans of the cover flow. We could go cover flow with details. There we go. You can see, because of that media that we downloaded, we've now got nice spinning boxes with the spines. And let's take this one, for example. You can actually go and you can say view 3D model. And there we go. That's the 3D model viewer. You can move it around with the keyboard. If you have a controller, I think it automatically maps and you can kind of spin it around as well. Yep, cover flow is a favorite. I know there's some cover flow fans. What else we got? Full screen. Yeah, full screen cover flow. That can be quite nice. There we go. Reminds me of old school iTunes. Let's go into a different platform. Let's go into GameCube. And you can see that view, the change in view actually sticks across all platforms. Now, when you start going down the whole rabbit hole of themes with Big Box, you can have individual views per platform. And this can get really wild. A lot of the themes that our community creates are based specifically on this. So they will have entire themes specific to a certain platform. But it really does just kind of show the flexibility and what you can do with Big Box. Right now we're using what's called the default theme, and again, there will be workshops on this later on in the week where you can actually see how to set those up. Just one other thing is, so the Game Discovery Center, this is my landing page. If you go back, there are other views that you can use in Big Box. So for example, if you wanted to just view your platform categories, here I've got the platform categories from LaunchBox, my computers, consoles, handhelds, and likewise I can also switch the views for these. Let's say I prefer Platform Wheel 2. There we go, so I've got my favorites. And let's look at that platform where we created those child playlists, that being SNES, which was here. And here we go. So you can see we've got nice logos here of all of the playlists that were generated. So for things like all games, we've got all of our genres, multiplayer. And because it's, there are, like I said, there are some pre-configured playlists with those platforms. It will actually add media to those as well. So you see I've got these nice logos. Okay, and that's Big Box in a nutshell, a very basic nutshell. Like I said, you can get really deep into the weeds with themes, but hopefully this gives you a brief overview of what you can expect. If we take another game, I mean, let's pick one more game to jump into, shall we? Let's see how that looks from Big Box. Let's take Cody's Block Ball. That was a fun game. So here we've got access to a lot of the options that we have within LaunchBox. We can do things like view the manual from here, which is fantastic. So if I do that, there we go. Look at that. We can view my manual straight from inside of Big Box. We can also launch additional apps from here. So let's find Donkey Konga, which had the additional apps. We go to Donkey Konga. It says additional apps and versions. And there we go. Now I can play the European, Japanese, USA versions. So we'll just quickly launch one of these. We will go to handhelds. Go to Game Boy. It's Block Ball. And there we are. You get a nice little loading screen. Depending on the theme that you use, these can be really nice. And there we are. Oh, this is another game that had fantastic music. Now, exiting out of RetroArch will take us back into Big Box. Straight away, you can see you got that nice game over screen. And of course, pretty basic right now with the basic theme, but if you have a theme installed, then that'll look really nice. Okay, so let's switch back to desktop mode. That will take me back to LaunchBox. And I think we've covered everything we wanted to for today. We're gonna leave it there for the sort of main demonstration today. We're gonna hang around for a little bit more, answer some questions if there's anything specific you want to see. But yeah, I hope you found it useful. I know, like I said, we did cover some basic things here. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of some of it, but hopefully you learned some of the some workflows or some tips and tricks. And of course, we're going to be diving a lot deeper throughout the rest of the week as well. So if anyone has any specific questions, then let's have a chat. Let's see what you got. A quick heads up for folks who are asking about saves. If you join tomorrow's stream, we're going to be showing a feature that is in the current beta, which is to do with saves. There are some exciting new. There is an exciting new feature that's going to come out in 13.16, which is regarding managing saves. So definitely tune in if you want to see more of that. Yeah, it's a good question about changing music for each system. I believe the way that it works is you can have music attached to a game, And that music will play when you're in the sort of that screen before you load the game. It will play that game's music. In terms of systems, I believe it's based on if you had. Actually, that's a good question. We do have something called platform videos. If we go to download and platform category video themes, this is actually a good thing to show. Is it will go and download some platform videos based on the systems that I have. This is great. Gone and found all of these ones. I'm going to hit OK. And when you're scrolling through those systems, it will actually show those videos. So in theory, I mean, if you had your own platform videos that have your own music, you could use those. You don't have to use the default ones. Is it possible to choose automatic games imported by platform? So unfortunately, the automatic ROM imports right now is there isn't a way to configure it per platform. We are looking at ways that we can do that. We know that there are platforms that will benefit from that. An example right now is platforms like Windows, and I think things like MS-DOS as well, because we know that those systems have multiple files inside of them. Right now, for example, Windows won't auto-import. Arcade is another system that actually doesn't auto-import, and the reason for that is because we know that there are multiple ways you can do it. Arcade is a bit more complicated when it comes to main ROM sets and things like that. So there are certain platforms that aren't included in that auto-import sort of bundle. But of course, there are other ways you can get those in. We are trying to make it as easy as possible. Platforms like PS3 and PS Vita recently got updates where it should be smarter about how it does the auto import. But of course, there's always things that slip through the cracks, and sometimes you do see random files that do show up there. So we're working to improve that. Yeah. Someone's asking about pause menus. This is something we'll cover tomorrow as well, but pause menus are a great way, especially within Big Box, to it's essentially a sort of separate pause window where you can pull up various information like manuals and achievements and things like that without having to go into RetroArch, for example. You can do it. So within those pause menus, you can look at manuals. And like I said, I was personally using this, like playing GameCube, and didn't want to look at my phone, so I just pulled up the pause menu, looked at the manual. It's a really nice way of quickly doing that. Someone says, does Big Box have a track mode? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. For those who don't know, so a track mode is basically, it's designed for arcade cabinets when you sort of leave it idle and it sort of cycles through games on, it's supposed to sort of play stuff in the background rather than just being left on a static screen. If I can remember where it is now, because it has been a while since I've used this. I think it's under options. Track mode, enable a track mode. Yeah. And what that will do is when you leave, let's say, for example, I'm on my let's just say I'm on my platform categories view. When you leave this, what it will do is it will cycle through various games. Now, if you have like lots of media and videos, this is really nice because it sort of plays these in the background. You can see here also, now that I've downloaded those platform categories, I'm actually getting videos for my individual consoles, which is great. So things like PlayStation, it's showing me a nice little intro video. And if I leave this, it will actually cycle through. You can customize how much it does that, like how often it spins through games, things like that. But yes, a track mode, definitely, that's what it's intended for. Yep, you can change pause themes and settings. Yep, we didn't have time to cover that today, but pause themes and startup themes, those can be really nice within Big Box. I realize a lot of people are probably looking in horror at me as to how could you use the default theme within Big Box when there is so much, when there are so many fantastic additional themes out there. And it is true, it's a good point. But certainly for getting started, just sort of seeing what Big Box is about, it's definitely a good theme to get started with. And then you can really take it in all sorts of wild directions from there. Okay, just a quick reminder for anyone who hasn't. Or actually, did anyone figure out what the number was? Did anyone figure out what the code is referencing? The secret code that is on screen right now. Yes, that's right. Although I can't remember actually which one it was specifically. Ah, that's what it is. Okay. Yeah, I did see a lot of comments about that, and then, sorry, it was going by very quickly. But yes. Well spotted. Good question about what's the question in the giveaway for a potential Linux version. This is definitely just trying to sort of gauge interest here. Like, we are very aware that Linux is a popular request. We're not going to dive into specifics today, but certainly on the AMA and the final stream, we can sort of discuss that. We know that it's a huge growing market, and there are a lot of people that really would, or we anticipate that there are a lot of people who would like a version on Linux. I think as we wind down here, we're actually gonna leave Big Box in attract mode so we can see what that looks like. Exactly, yeah. Switching arcade machines from Windows to Linux, definitely highly requested. I mean, let's see which of these we can quickly jump into. Dead or Relive 2, good shout. Sonic Adventure 2, oh man. I mean, don't even get me started on that. We'll be here all evening. Someone's mentioning about Big Box and performance. Definitely a popular request, and Big Box can certainly can take its toll on a system depending on which theme you're using. Obviously, it looks very snappy, and I'm using a small collection now. There are multiple. It's a tricky question because there are multiple things that will contribute to performance in Big Box. You know, like I said, the theme is probably the biggest thing. So if you're using a theme that has just tons of effects and sort of transparency and things like that, obviously you can expect that to take a toll. There are ways you can kind of trim it down. There are, if you sort of go, we won't go through all of them today, but there are sort of various effects and sort of transitions that you can sort of tweak to try and optimize the performance of Big Box. But obviously, just as the game library grows and the specific theme that you're using, performance is something to be aware of. Also, the system that you're using as well. Like, I run on a handheld, and I want to make sure that I'm giving it enough sort of power to keep up with it. And generally, it's fine. But yeah, it's something to be aware of. Kingdom Hearts 2.8, highly recommend. Yes. See, I bought the trilogy that's on Steam right now, and I've already played the original 2, so I thought I'm going to start with 2.8, get through that, and then get on to 3. And exactly, good point. With Big Box now, when it comes to if you want to know if your system can handle it, you can, in the latest beta and what will become 13.16, you can actually try it out for yourself. So you can see exactly how Big Box will perform. Like I said, the only limitations on that is that you can't launch games and you can't use additional themes. But everything else that you see, you will be able to experiment with, and so you can really test it out and see if it works for you. Here we have one of the, again, my library is quite small, but what the LaunchBox team is playing, Rayman. I'm not sure who's playing that. I mean, I wouldn't put myself through that game just because I'm not very good at it, but it is a good game. Someone says, how can we test out Big Box? This is included in the latest beta of LaunchBox and what will become 13.16. I'll very quickly show you what it actually looks like, which is If I was to just remove my license, just temporarily move that out. If I was to go into Big Box, thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the celebration. Congrats. And yeah, thank you all for participating and joining. But I'm now back on my free version. If I was to try and launch a Big Box, it's going to say it's only available with premium, but why don't you start a free trial? And there we go. It is as simple as that. It's saying you have a 30-minute free trial, just telling you the restrictions, but also you can test it out. Okay, I think we'll start winding down soon. Just to so firstly, obviously, thank you all for joining the stream here. Like I said, we've got a whole bunch more coming throughout the week. Just to quickly remind folks, you can go to our Celebrate website. Make sure to grab that code and pop it in the giveaway. Like I said, it's only valid for today, so make sure you don't miss out on that. We have tomorrow we'll be taking our build to another level with advanced customization. We've got builds that go into sort of plugins and the developer side of LaunchBox, theming, how you can make Big Box look even better, and our final stream where we'll be hanging out, answering some of those questions and playing some games. So you definitely don't want to miss those. These streams will be, I believe they'll be available on Twitch afterwards for a short period, just in case anyone's not able to join. And definitely have a look through some of these other events. For example, all of these ones like our Game Gauntlet and Top Picks are, there are Steam keys up for grabs. So we've got some great conversations going on over there. And the final one is our AMA. So if you have any burning questions specific to LaunchBox itself as a company, features, things like that. Obviously, we ask that this is, you know, not a place for sort of support and things like that. But if you're curious about certain aspects, then definitely ask that here, and we'll make sure that we get those answered. Yep, thanks for the stream. Thanks for coming. Make sure to upload spines, not splines, as I've been saying throughout the whole stream. That is my bad. But fantastic. Yeah, I think we're going to start winding down. I'm going to hang around for a couple of minutes if anyone has any last questions. But otherwise, thank you all for coming. It's been a really fun, it's a really fun kickoff to the celebration. We've got a whole lot more coming throughout the week, and yeah, we're just very grateful for everyone's contribution. We're happy that you you all enjoy LaunchBox, and we've got more to come. Okay, thank you, everyone. Alrighty, I think we'll close it down. I do realize it's been a very busy chat today, so firstly, just thank you. And we tried to answer some of the questions today. Apologies if we couldn't get to everyone. Of course, if you have specific sort of LaunchBox company feature-related questions, definitely use our AMA. Our forum is a great place to ask for questions, and of course our Discord as well. But we'll be doing our best to answer chats throughout the week. Do apologize if I missed anyone's. I know there's been some very gracious subscribes and things like that, so if I missed any of those, apologies. But yeah, it's been a very busy stream, so we're very grateful, and we hope you've had fun. Alrighty, we are going to call it there. Thank you everyone for joining. Happy 11th celebration to LaunchBox, and we will see you all again tomorrow. All right, folks. Thanks all. Bye-bye.